In ancient Slavic tales, the forest is far more than a collection of trees. It is a character in its own right. It exists as a living, breathing entity that stands on the boundary between our world and the other realm. This is a place where the familiar rules of reality begin to unravel, where the lost, the desperate, or those bold enough to seek it may encounter things never meant to be found. It is a domain of deep shadows and even deeper memories. The journey lasts for days. Everything familiar is left behind. Paths disappear and any sense of direction fades away. The sounds of human life dissolve into a heavy silence, one that is only broken by the snap of a twig, dice, underfoot, or the whisper of the wind that sometimes seems to call out a name. Here, in the very heart of the forest, you may reach its domain, but you do not find it directly. Instead, you first come upon its dwelling. The house itself is a striking impossibility. A small, rough wooden hut perched precariously atop enormous, scaly chicken legs. It never stays still. It can walk, run, and at times spin wildly in dizzying circles. It appears to have a will of its own. Surrounding it is a fence constructed from human bones. At the tops of the posts stand skulls, their hollow eye sockets glowing with an eerie inner fire in the darkness. Even approaching the house is a ritual in itself. You cannot simply walk up to its door. To make it turn and face you, you must know the hidden words, the right spell. O hut, turn your back to the forest and your face to me. Only then does the house groan to a halt, its enormous legs bending as it lowers itself to the ground, allowing you to enter. But who is the master of this impossible dwelling? She is a monster, sharpening her teeth on stone, devouring lost children. Yet she is also wise, offering magical gifts, powerful enough to save a kingdom. She is a witch who commands the elements and guards the waters of life and death. She flies across the sky in a giant mortar, steering with its pestle, while a broom made of silver birch sweeps away her trail. For centuries, one name has echoed through the forests of Eastern Europe, Baba Yaga. But is she truly a villain or a guide? Or perhaps something else entirely, a force of nature as neutral and as dangerous as the forest itself? Who or what is she? To find the answer, we must do as the heroes of old tales once did. We must be brave, we must remain respectful, and we must knock on her door. To truly understand the mystery of Baba Yaga, it is not enough to look at her alone. We must also look at those who dare, or are forced by desperation, to seek her out. And among all the heroes and heroines of old tales, none is more famous than the young girl known as Vasilisa the Beautiful. Like many stories, hers begins with a dying mother's final gift. Just before her death, Vasilisa's mother gives her a small, magical doll and leaves her with one last instruction. "Feed this doll, my child," she says, "and whenever you are in trouble, ask for its guidance. It will help you." This doll is far more than a toy. It is Vasilisa's intuition, her mother's wisdom given physical form. After her mother's death, her father remarries a cruel and jealous woman who has two daughters of her own. The stepmother and stepsisters envy Vasilisa's beauty and her gentle nature. Their jealousy turns into relentless cruelty. They force her to carry out all the household labor, hoping to wear her down and extinguish the light within her. But every night, Vasilisa feeds the doll a small crumb from her meal and shares her troubles. The doll comes to life, comforting her, and while she sleeps, it magically completes all the impossible tasks. It cleans the yard, carries the water, and lights the fire. And so, despite the harshness of her life, Vasilisa endures. And somehow, through all her suffering, her beauty only continues to grow brighter. Determined to be rid of her forever, the stepmother devised a cruel and calculated plan. She moved the family to a small, isolated hut on the very edge of a deep, shadowy forest, one that everyone knew belonged to Baba Yaga. One autumn evening, she extinguished every candle and lamp in the house, plunging them into complete darkness. "We have no fire," she said coldly. "One of you must go to our neighbor and ask for light." But their only neighbor was the witch herself. The stepsisters refused, hiding behind feigned fear, leaving the task to Vasilisa. What seemed like a simple chore was, in truth, a death sentence in disguise. And so, with nothing but the small doll in her pocket for comfort, young Vasilisa set out alone into the haunted forest on an impossible quest. She walked through the entire night. The forest grew denser, darker, and unnervingly silent. The branches of ancient trees seemed to reach toward her, while strange sounds whispered through the shadows. She was terrified. Yet she trusted the doll in her pocket. It guided her, keeping her on the right path. She walked through the following day as well, and as night began to fall once more, she knew she was getting close. This place felt different. The forest here was older, stronger, and seemed to pulse with the presence of something unseen, something deeply unsettling. The very air seemed to vibrate with a strange, unseen energy, and it was in that moment that she encountered the first of the great mysteries. Without warning, a rider raced past her. He was dressed entirely in white, his face radiant and glowing, mounted upon a pure white horse. As he passed, the deep darkness of night withdrew, and the soft grey light of dawn began to slip through the trees. Vasilisa stood in awe, but she kept moving forward. Later, when the sun stood high above, a second rider thundered past. This one was clad in red, his face bright and burning, riding a horse as red as blood. As he passed, the sun flared to life in its full midday brilliance, flooding the world with light. Vasilisa now understood that these riders were no ordinary men. She had stepped into a realm where the fundamental forces of the world took on physical form. At last, as evening descended, she reached a clearing, and there stood Baba Yaga's impossible hut, encircled by a fence made of bones. Just as she arrived, the third and final rider appeared. Clad entirely in black, his face as dark as a shadow, he rode a jet-black horse. He passed straight through Baba Yaga's gate and vanished from sight. In that very instant, night fell upon the world, deep, absolute darkness swallowing everything. Vasilisa stood frozen in fear. The only light came from the eerie glow of the skulls mounted on the fence. In her pocket, the doll trembled. She had just witnessed the passing of Baba Yaga's faithful servants, the bright dawn, the blazing noon, and the dark midnight. The being she had come to face did not merely rule a hut in the woods, she commanded time itself. Shaking, Vasilisa stepped inside the hut and found herself in a place both strange and mesmerizing. The interior was far larger than it appeared from the outside, yet it felt grim and foreboding. The air was thick with the scent of unfamiliar herbs and something else, something faintly human. She saw a great dark stove, a table that seemed to set itself, and, stranger still, 3 pairs of disembodied hands scurrying about like unseen servants. Then the air itself began to howl. The trees outside groaned and bent. A thunderous noise swept through the forest as Baba Yaga came flying home. She landed in her courtyard, sniffed the air and shrieked, "I smell a human! Who is there?" Remembering her doll's advice, Vasilisa stepped forward, bowed deeply and spoke with calm respect, her voice steady. "It is only me, grandmother. My stepsisters sent me to ask you for fire." Baba Yaga fixed her with a terrible stare. "I know your stepmother," she snarled. "Very well. You may have your fire if you can earn it. You will stay here and work for me. Do everything I command, and you shall receive what you seek." Then she grinned, revealing her sharpened iron teeth. "Fail, and I will eat you." The next morning, Baba Yaga set Vasilisa her first impossible tasks. Sweep the yard, Clean the entire hut, prepare the meal, and most daunting of all, sort a bushel of wheat, separating each grain from a pile mixed with dirt and poppy seeds. All of it had to be finished before Baba Yaga returned. Left alone, Vasilisa gazed at the towering heap and felt despair rise within her. The task was truly impossible. She began to cry, but then she remembered her mother's gift. She took out the small doll, placed a crumb of bread before it, and told it of her troubles. The doll's eyes seemed to glow. "Do not weep, little mistress," a soft voice whispered. "Eat your supper, say your prayers, and go to sleep, for the morning is wiser than the evening." Trusting her intuition, Vasilisa did as she was told. As she fell into a deep and peaceful sleep, the little doll sprang into action. It summoned ants, birds, and unseen helpers. Throughout the night, they worked tirelessly, separating the wheat, the poppy seeds, and the dirt into 3 perfect piles. When Baba Yaga returned the next day, she was both astonished and enraged to find every task completed flawlessly. Bound by ancient magical laws, she could not harm the girl. But she was not yet defeated. She assigned even more difficult tasks the following day, each more impossible than the last. Yet, every night, the doll completed them all. Vasilisa never saw how the work was done. She simply trusted her inner voice, rested, and awoke each morning to find her trials overcome. At last, Baba Yaga knew she had been outmatched. Baba Yaga had come to realize that a power greater than her own was protecting the girl. "You have done your work," she muttered. "Take your fire. But first," she allowed Vasilisa to ask her questions. Remembering her doll's advice, Vasilisa wisely chose to ask only about what she had seen outside the hut. "I saw a white horseman," she said. "Who was he?" "That was my bright day," the witch replied. "And the red one?" "That was my red sun." "And the black rider?" "That was my dark midnight. They are all my faithful servants." Then Baba Yaga fixed her piercing gaze upon the girl once more. "And why do you not ask about what you saw inside my hut? The disembodied hands?" Vasilisa lowered her head and answered respectfully. "Because you yourself said, grandmother, that it is not good for those who know too much." This answer pleased the old witch greatly. It showed that Vasilisa respected the boundaries of forbidden knowledge. She had passed the final test, the test of wisdom. With the trials complete, Baba Yaga's demeanor shifted. Bound by ancient laws of magic and hospitality, she could not deny the girl her reward. "You have asked enough," she said. "Take the fire you came for and go." Baba Yaga walked to her dreadful fence, plucked a skull with blazing eyes from one of the posts, fixed it onto a stick, and handed it to Vasilisa. "Here is your light," she said. "Take it home. This is what your stepmother sent you for." Vasilisa took the grim lantern, bowed one last time, and turned away. As she walked, she heard Baba Yaga's voice echo behind her. "You have been well served, child. Go in peace." It was not a warm blessing, only a simple acknowledgement, one power recognizing another. Vasilisa made her way back through the forest, but this time there was no fear in her heart. The path that once seemed terrifying in the dark was now brilliantly lit by the eerie, otherworldly glow of the skull. Even the ancient gnarled trees seemed to shrink back from its gaze. The darkness itself recoiled before it. Vasilisa felt the urge to throw the skull away, to rid herself of the terrible object. But a soft voice from the doll in her pocket whispered, "Do not throw it away, little mistress. You have earned it. Carry it home." And Vasilisa understood. She was no longer just a frightened girl sent on an errand. She had become something more, a bearer of magic, a wielder of a powerful and dangerous justice drawn from the edge of the other world. When she finally returned to the cottage, her stepmother and stepsisters rushed to meet her. They told her they had been unable to light a fire in her absence, not even a single spark. Seeing the light she carried, they felt relief, hoping their cruel scheme had succeeded in some way. But as Vasilisa stepped inside, the skull's burning eyes turned toward the three wicked women. They froze, transfixed by its hollow gaze. The light grew stronger, as if it were hunting them. They tried to flee, to hide in the shadows of the room, but there was nowhere to escape. The glow followed them, filled with an eerie awareness and an ancient sense of judgment. The skull's gaze tracked their every movement, scorching them with a magical fire. By morning, nothing remained of the cruel stepmother and her daughters, but a small heap of fine black ash. This was not an act of murder by Vasilisa. It was justice, delivered by the uncanny power she had carried back from the threshold of another world. Having endured her trial and witnessed justice fulfilled, Vasilisa buried the skull in the garden so it could harm no one else. She left the cursed cottage behind forever and went on to live a long and prosperous life. Her trial by fire was over. She had faced the great and terrible mother of the forest and emerged not as a victim, but as a wise and powerful woman in her own right. And so ends the most well-known version of the tale of Vasilisa the Beautiful, as recorded in the 19th century by the great Russian folklorist Alexander Afanasyev. It is a powerful story of quiet endurance, feminine intuition, and the fierce justice of the other world. But it is important to remember, these ancient tales are not fixed like modern novels. They are like a great river, flowing through generations, branching into countless streams and variations as they are told and retold over time. The story of Vasilisa is no exception to this pattern of variation. Across different tellings, the heroine can take on strikingly different forms. In some versions, she is known as Vasilisa the Brave, a strong, independent, and unconventional figure, even portrayed as a skilled markswoman with a rifle. In others, her path to royalty is not forged through the terrifying justice of the skull, but through her extraordinary talent as a weaver, creating cloth so exquisite that it captures the attention of the Tsar. Yet, across all these variations, one essential element remains unchanged: the initiation itself. A young woman's perilous journey into the domain of the great and fearsome witch, and her inevitable return, transformed with newfound strength and deeper wisdom. It is this unchanging trial that reveals the true ancient purpose of the tale. Let us begin our exploration with one of the most bizarre and unforgettable images from the legend: the impossible house standing on two enormous chicken legs. We have seen it as a source of terror for lost travelers, but to truly understand Baba Yaga, we must examine the very place she calls home. It is an image of profound strangeness, blending the domestic with the monstrous, the ordinary with the magical. In the stories, the hut is not merely a structure, it is alive, a sentient being. It can race through the forest at incredible speed or remain in place, spinning endlessly in a dizzying motion. It marks the moment when a hero leaves the ordinary world behind and enters a realm where the laws of nature no longer apply. And yet, this fantastical image may be rooted in a very real and practical human invention. For centuries, nomadic peoples of Siberia and northern Europe, such as the Sami and other Finno-Ugric tribes, constructed elevated food storage huts to protect their supplies from animals and melting snow. These small, windowless log cabins were built atop 2 or 3 tall, rot-resistant tree stumps. To an unfamiliar observer, they would appear to stand on legs. The spreading roots at the base of the stumps could easily resemble the clawed feet of a giant bird. It is highly likely that the legendary image of Baba Yaga's hut is a folkloric echo, a mythologized memory of these real, unusual structures. In fairy tales, however, the hut is far more than a clever storage solution. It is a character in its own right, a magical guardian. It never turns to face the approaching hero. Its door always looks toward the deep forest. To gain entry into Baba Yaga's domain, a hero must possess the sacred knowledge of the ritual incantation. By commanding the hut to turn its back to the forest and face the visitor, the seeker activates a sentient gatekeeper that evaluates their worthiness. As the structure creaks upon its massive avian legs to obey, it acts as more than a house. It is a living threshold between the mundane world and the thrice 10th kingdom, the Slavic land of the dead. Entering this dwelling is a conscious choice to abandon the physical realm for a place of pure spirit where the laws of time are suspended. The hut's rotation is the literal turning of a key in a cosmic lock, bridging the gap between existence and the afterlife. Baba Yaga's peculiar tools, the mortar, pestle, and broom, further illuminate her complex identity. While these are traditionally symbols of domestic labor and nourishment, she subverts their purpose. The mortar, typically used to create life-sustaining flour, becomes a vessel for pursuit and a tool for grinding bone. Her broom does not merely clean, it functions as a weapon of mystical concealment, erasing her very presence from reality. Finally, the gruesome perimeter of her home, constructed from the skeletal remains of those who failed her trials, serves as a chilling testament to the absolute power she wields over her supernatural territory. This is a clear and brutal statement of her power. It is a warning, a trophy case, and a promise. It conveys to any approaching hero that they are entering the domain of a being for whom death is not a tragedy but a building material. She is a being who wields absolute power over the lives and bodies of those who enter her world. At night, the only light in the clearing emanates from the skulls themselves. Their empty eye sockets burn with an eternal magical fire, illuminating the clearing with an eerie, dancing glow. This is the very fire that Vasilisa was sent to retrieve, a light that comes directly from the face of death. In many of the tales, the fence has one post that remains conspicuously empty. Baba Yaga often informs the hero that if they fail their impossible tasks, she will consume them and use their skull to complete her fence. This transforms the gruesome barrier from a mere warning into a direct personal threat, a ticking clock that measures the hero's proximity to becoming just another one of the witch's ghastly lanterns. However, the fence is not truly meant to keep people out. It is a symbolic boundary. It serves as the literal and unmistakable border marker for the land of the dead. To pass through the gate made of human bones is to leave the world of the living behind and enter the underworld, a separate reality where Baba Yaga holds absolute authority. Everything about her domain, the living hut acting as a guardian, the strange tools that defy their conventional function, and the fence that separates life from death, establishes her true role. She is not merely a witch living in the woods. She is a primal goddess, a chthonic power, the great and terrible guardian of the threshold between our world and the next. To understand the true origin of a figure as strange and ancient as Baba Yaga, we must look beyond the fairy tales. We must travel further back in time to the era preceding the Christian cross, returning to the profound primordial spirituality of the pre-Christian Slavic tribes. This was a realm ruled by a pantheon of potent and often intimidating nature deities. Leading this hierarchy was the Great Perun, the god of thunder, lightning, and conflict, a stern, fiery skyfather whose weapon was the axe and whose sacred emblem was the oak tree. His primary adversary was Veles, the horned deity of the lowlands, forests, waters, and the underworld. Veles presided over magic, secrets, livestock, and prosperity. The cosmic struggle between the high sky god and the horned earth god served as the central narrative of their mythology. The ancient Slavs did not construct massive stone temples like the Greeks or Sumerians. Instead, their most hallowed sites were those provided by the natural world. They conducted worship in pristine ancient groves, atop high mountain peaks, and at the curves of sacred rivers. In these locations, they raised towering wooden idols meticulously carved with the countenances of their gods, where priests known as the Volkvi would offer bread, grain, and mead. Their spirituality was not confined within walls, it was intricately woven into the very land they occupied. A deep, inseparable link existed between the people and the spirits of the natural environment. Power was not restricted to the major gods alone. To the ancient Slavs, the entire world vibrated with magic and sentience. Every woodland had its guardian spirit, the Leshi. Every river contained the alluring yet perilous Rusalki, and every household sheltered a mischievous spirit called the Domovoi. This was a world where the line between the natural and supernatural was thin and constantly shifting. A reality where spirits were a matter of daily experience rather than just belief. It is within this ancient animistic perspective, surrounded by powerful nature gods and ever-present spirits, that we find the true primordial essence of Baba Yaga. To uncover Baba Yaga's true origins, we must recognize her not as a mere character, but as an archetype. She represents the formidable crone, the third aspect of the ancient triple goddess, the maiden, the mother, and finally, the crone. The crone personifies winter, endings, mortality, and the harsh, daunting wisdom acquired through immense age. Many historians and folklorists view Baba Yaga as a folkloric memory, a lingering, distorted echo of a much older pre-Christian goddess who once held a vital position in Slavic spiritual life before being marginalized by the arrival of Christianity. Searching through ancient European myths, we find her counterparts hidden in plain sight. Within the Slavic realm, there is the goddess Morana or Marzana, the divine embodiment of winter, famine, and death. Her arrival signaled the end of the harvest and the start of the long, frozen months. Her departure was so significant that, even today, rituals are held across Eastern Europe where an effigy of Morana is burned or drowned to symbolically end winter and welcome life's return. Baba Yaga shares numerous traits with Morana. Both are linked to death and the severity of winter, and both are powerful female figures requiring respect and occasional appeasement. Further west, in the folklore of Scotland and Ireland, we encounter another sister, the Cailleach. She is the divine hag of winter, a blue-faced giantess credited with carving the mountains and valleys. Carrying a great staff, she strikes the ground to bring the season's first frosts. Like Baba Yaga, the Cailleach is an ancient female entity personifying the shaping and destructive force of the winter landscape. In Germanic lore, we find Frau Holle, or the terrifying Perchta, who mirror the same profound ambiguity seen in Baba Yaga. Frau Holle can be a kind benefactor rewarding hard work, yet she also leads the ghostly wild hunt through the winter sky and punishes the wicked with terrifying severity. This dual nature, being both a rewarder and a punisher, is the quintessential hallmark of Baba Yaga. She is neither strictly good nor evil, but a figure of cosmic justice. When viewed together, it becomes clear. Baba Yaga is the Slavic face of a pan-European archetype, the primordial goddess of winter, death, and destiny, whose roots reach deep into prehistory. Thus, they were stripped of their rank, descending from divine seasonal rulers to monstrous hags haunting the deepest thickets. The Baba Yaga we encounter in folklore is far more than a mere witch. She is a goddess in exile. When we synthesize these ancient elements, the deity of winter and demise, the raw power of the wild, the skeletal fence, and the hut that functions as a gateway, her true mythological purpose becomes evident. She is not simply a forest-dwelling sorceress, she is the sentinel. She stands at the very precipice of reality, a formidable guard at the portal between the living realm and the world of spirits and the departed. Her domain is a liminal space, a frontier between two states of existence. This explains why her hut lacks a conventional location and must be summoned via incantation. It does not occupy a fixed spot in our world, but exists on the boundary with her as the gatekeeper. Her function is to challenge all who desire passage from one realm to the next. This perspective redefines her entire persona. Her severity is not arbitrary, and her inquiries are not born of idle curiosity. They represent a trial to gauge the worthiness of the seeker standing before her. Are you brave enough to withstand my ghastly form? Are you wise enough to offer the proper deference? Are you clever enough to unravel my enigmas and resourceful enough to fulfill my impossible demands? She is weighing the visitor's very soul, determining if they possess the fortitude required to survive an odyssey into the spirit realm. She acts as the great and terrible adjudicator at the threshold of mystery, granting entry only to those who endure her scrutiny. This is precisely why a meeting with Baba Yaga always signals a moment of radical transformation. It is an initiation rite. Those who fail the ordeal are consumed by the underworld, their remains integrated into the fence as a warning to the unworthy. Yet those who succeed, proving their mettle through valor, intellect, and intuition, are not merely permitted to pass. They are fundamentally altered by the encounter. They emerge from her territory reborn, no longer naive youths, but mature individuals who have looked death in the face and mastered their fear. Often they carry a magical boon from her, a tool or a fragment of wisdom that empowers them to return and reshape their own destiny. Her hut is a crucible that either forges heroes or breaks them. Ultimately, Baba Yaga is the embodiment of a necessary, albeit terrifying, natural progression. She is the trial by fire every hero must face. She is the daunting countenance of the wilderness itself, simultaneously perilous and life-giving. She is neither benevolent nor malevolent. She is a fundamental force, as neutral and absolute as death itself. She is the primordial goddess who stands watch over the doorway to the most profound mysteries. She grants access solely to those who prove their worthiness, offering neither straightforward answers nor gentle solace. Instead, she presents a challenge and the profound realization that genuine wisdom is attained only by those willing to journey into the deepest shadows of the forest. If Baba Yaga serves as the formidable sentry at the gateway to the otherworld, then who reigns over that desolate realm? Within the landscape of the Slavic imagination, the domain of death is ruled by a single figure, the terrifying sorcerer king, Koshchei the Deathless. While Baba Yaga embodies the force of wild nature, Koshchei represents an unnatural stagnation. He is an immortal warlock whose soul is concealed in a hidden location, rendering him impossible to slay by conventional means. Koshchei does not personify the natural cycle of mortality and rebirth. Rather, he represents a sterile, tyrannical death, a miser who hoards not only gold but life itself by abducting beautiful princesses and confining them within his dark fortress. He is the ultimate jailer. Given their status as the two most potent supernatural entities in folklore, one might expect them to be allies, a king and queen of darkness. However, the tales unveil a far more intricate and compelling relationship. They are rarely portrayed as spouses or siblings. Instead, they function as two autonomous and occasionally competing powers within the same spiritual terrain. Koshchei represents death as a static prison, whereas Baba Yaga embodies the hazardous, process-driven power that governs the transition to that prison. This dynamic is most vividly illustrated in the renowned tale of Maria Morevna, also known as The Death of Koshchei the Deathless, a story suggesting that Baba Yaga is not Koshchei's subordinate, but perhaps his superior. In this narrative, the hero Ivan Tsarevich must defeat Koshchei to rescue his warrior princess bride, Maria Morevna. However, Koshchei possesses a magical steed faster than any other in existence, making him untraceable. To stand any chance of overcoming the warlock, Ivan is told he must acquire an even swifter horse, a superior steed belonging to the only being capable of possessing such a thing: Baba Yaga. Consequently, Ivan embarks on the perilous trek to her domain. Yet, she does not simply hand over the horse. As always, he must earn it by enduring her trials. She commands him to tend her herd of magical mares for 3 days, a task that seems straightforward but is in reality impossible. Each day, the mares scatter and vanish. Ivan only succeeds through the assistance of magical creatures and the witch's own daughter, who has fallen in love with him. Upon surviving the trials, he is rewarded with the permission to take one of the supernatural steeds, a magical horse capable of outrunning even Koshchei's own mount. This narrative brilliantly highlights the true power dynamics within the Slavic underworld. While Koshchei may reign as the tyrannical lord of death, Baba Yaga is the autonomous power broker who possesses the very instrument of his downfall. She is the custodian of his destruction, a reality that the warlock appears powerless to change. This casts her not as a conventional villain, but as a complex, neutral entity whose influence can be wielded even against the Lord of the Underworld, provided the hero proves worthy enough to endure her ordeals. The Otherworld is not a unified empire of evil. It is a territory of ancient, competing authorities, and Baba Yaga, the sentry of its gates, may be the most primordial and potent among them. In many of the most intricate Slavic legends, Baba Yaga is depicted not as an individual, but as a trio of enigmatic and powerful sisters who all share the same name. In tales like the famous story of the Maiden Tsar, a hero embarked on a desperate quest is informed that he must seek the guidance of not one, but 3 Baba Yagas to find his goal. This trek serves as a progressive test of the hero's fortitude and spirit. He must travel a vast distance to reach the youngest sister, then venture even further to the home of the middle sister, and finally trek to the very edge of existence to find the 3rd sister, the eldest, wisest, and most formidable of the 3. Each interaction follows a consistent pattern. The hero arrives at the hut, summons its mistress, and respectfully details his mission. The Baba Yaga then challenges him, posing questions and frequently threatening to devour him. However, if the hero demonstrates sufficient bravery and deference, her demeanor shifts. The first sister will admit she lacks the final answer, but refuses to send him away empty-handed. Impressed by his resolve, she grants him a magical boon, perhaps a supernatural horse or a magic ball that rolls ahead to mark the path. She then provides directions to the middle sister's dwelling, warning that the next leg of the journey will be significantly more hazardous. The hero repeats this ritual with the second sister, who eventually directs him to the 3rd. It is this final Baba Yaga, the eldest and most sovereign, who holds the ultimate key to the hero's triumph. Following a final evaluation of his worthiness, she delivers the essential information or the unique magical artifact required to complete his quest. This motif of 3 potent supernatural sisters is a clear reflection of one of the most ancient and universal archetypes in global mythology, the 3 Fates, known as the Moirai in Greek myth and the Norns in Norse tradition. These are the 3 potent goddesses who spun, measured, and severed the thread of every human existence, presiding over the destinies of mortals and gods alike. By appearing as a trinity of sisters who sequentially lead and challenge a hero, Baba Yaga's role is elevated far beyond that of a common witch. She is revealed as an integral part of a divine triumvirate that governs fate itself. Her ordeals are not arbitrary. They are essential components of the hero's preordained destiny, a journey that she does not merely oversee, but actively molds. While many protagonists earn Baba Yaga's favor through virtue and intellect, other legends unveil a much darker facet of her role as a donor. In these accounts, her magical assistance is not offered willingly, it must be seized by force. The tale of the blind man and the cripple serves as a perfect illustration. Here, she appears as a purely parasitic antagonist who visits a kidnapped merchant's daughter to drain her life force. The two heroes of the story, bound by an oath of brotherhood, manage to track and capture her. They threaten to cast her into a fiery oven unless she discloses the location of a magical fountain capable of healing their infirmities. Here we encounter a different breed of hero, one who triumphs not through courtesy, but by turning the witch's own terrifying instrument, the oven, against her. Even in captivity, however, Baba Yaga remains treacherous. She initially attempts to deceive them, leading them toward a fountain of fire that would cause their destruction. Only when they overcome her duplicity and threaten her once more does she finally succumb, guiding them to the true waters of restoration. This reveals a critical dimension of her character. Her power can be a source of healing, yet it is often granted only grudgingly, extracted from her by those clever and ruthless enough to corner her. To fully grasp Baba Yaga's unique and cosmic standing, it is helpful to contrast her with the more frequent guardian of the Slavic woods, the Leshy. The Leshy is a formidable and ancient spirit, yet his influence is fundamentally local. He is a tutelary deity, a guardian spirit whose authority is confined to a specific forest. He is a master of deception, capable of mimicking the voices of loved ones to lead travelers astray. He can be a fearsome protector of his beasts, but also a benefactor, offering herbal lore or ensuring a successful hunt for those who treat him with proper reverence. The Leshy is a spirit of the woods. His very essence is tied to the forest he inhabits. Baba Yaga is fundamentally different. Although her hut is situated in the forest, she is not a spirit of the forest. Her power is cosmic. As evidenced in the tale of Vasilisa, her attendants are not woodland creatures. They are the day, the sun, and the night. She does not merely control a single patch of woods, she commands the very turning of the world. A Leshy might cause you to lose your bearings on a path, but Baba Yaga's hut is the gateway to an entirely different reality. The Leshy might test your reverence for the natural world. Baba Yaga evaluates your readiness to enter the realm of the dead. This distinction clarifies her exceptional status. She is not just another spirit in the teeming Slavic pantheon. She is a primordial, chthonic power whose portal to the underworld simply happens to be situated in the deepest, darkest reaches of the forest. We have now explored the world of Baba Yaga. We have trekked through her impossible forest, stood before her uncanny hut, and witnessed her trials through the eyes of the courageous Vasilisa. We have seen that she is not a single entity, but many. A goddess in exile, a guardian, a tester. Yet, this raises a more profound question. Why has this specific narrative, the tale of a young girl confronting a fearsome old woman in the woods, been recounted for countless generations? Why does it resonate with such profound truth even when we recognize it as a fantasy? To find the answer, we must depart from the world of folklore and enter a different kind of wilderness, the vast and ancient landscape of the human mind. The story of Vasilisa is not merely a fairy tale, it is a remarkably accurate map of a deep psychological odyssey. It is a journey of transformation that modern psychology has spent over a century attempting to decipher. It is the narrative of how we become our true selves. This psychological journey, this rite of passage, is a universal pattern that invariably begins in the same place, a world of safety and comfort. It commences in the symbolic cottage of our childhood, a place of warmth and familiarity protected from the dark forest outside. In his seminal 1909 book, the ethnographer Arnold van Gennep termed this first stage separation, the necessary, often painful act of leaving the familiar world behind to initiate the journey of transformation. This is Vasilisa cast out from her home, but it is also a universal story. To become an individual, one must first abandon the security of the nest and venture alone into the woods. And it is in these woods that one encounters the next stage of the initiation, the test. However, the trial begins not with a monster, but with a location, a place designed to fracture the very foundations of our understanding. This is the stage of liminality, a perilous in-between state, and Vasilisa arrives at its quintessential symbol, Baba Yaga's hut. Here, she confronts what Sigmund Freud would categorize as the ultimate uncanny object. The uncanny, Freud argued, is the horror derived from seeing something deeply familiar, like a home, rendered monstrously strange. Baba Yaga's hut is a perversion of this sacred symbol. It is the unhomely home, a place of supposed safety that has become a mobile, sentient predator. By crossing its threshold, a gate constructed of bones, the hero is not merely entering a monster's lair, they are stepping into a space of profound psychological horror, a place where the foundational rules of reality have been suspended. This is the true commencement of the trial. Inside this liminal space, the initiate must face the central ordeal. From the perspective of psychologist Carl Jung, this is a direct confrontation with one of the most potent archetypes in the collective unconscious, the terrible mother. This is the devouring, possessive aspect of nature and family that threatens to keep a child in a permanent state of dependency. Baba Yaga, with her insatiable hunger, is the perfect embodiment of this fearsome archetype. Her tests are a trial to determine if the hero possesses the strength to resist being consumed, to prove they are prepared for an independent existence. Vasilisa must serve this terrible mother without being destroyed by her. And this trial serves a crucial narrative purpose, as identified by the Russian scholar Vladimir Prop. Baba Yaga functions as the archetypal donor. She is a character who subjects the hero to a grueling ordeal and, upon their triumph, provides the magical catalyst necessary to finalize their quest. Her cruelty acts as a spark. By navigating the trials using her intuition and insight, Vasilisa establishes her worthiness. Consequently, the terrible mother is compelled to become the benefactor. She bestows upon Vasilisa the fiery skull, the very instrument required to overcome her oppressors back in the realm of the living. This culminates in the final phase of the ritual, incorporation. Vasilisa returns to her society no longer as a helpless victim, but as a transformed individual armed with newfound power and a restructured understanding of reality. She has endured a symbolic death and emerged reborn as a mature adult. The Chronicle of Baba Yaga, therefore, is far more than a mere frightening tale. It is a sophisticated cartography of the soul. It is a narrative that employs the dialect of folklore to describe the daunting but vital psychological odyssey we must all undertake, leaving the sanctuary of home, confronting the devouring shadows of our own anxieties, and emerging with the wisdom to illuminate our path forward. There is one final, essential lens through which we can perceive Baba Yaga's enduring resonance, and that is the radical essence of her femininity. In the vast majority of European folk traditions, a female character's agency is defined by her ties to men. She is the beautiful maiden to be won, the devoted spouse, the nurturing mother, or the malevolent stepmother conspiring against a monarch. Her identity is almost invariably relational. Baba Yaga violently discards all of these classifications. She is neither a wife nor a mother in any conventional sense, and she is beholden to no male sovereign. Her power is not borrowed or derivative, it is ancient elemental and entirely her own. Rooted in her communion with nature and the supernatural realm, she personifies a form of female potency that is self-defined, autonomous, and utterly undomesticated. In this light, she emerges as a formidable icon, a representation of a wild, sovereign nature that refuses to be tamed, governed, or exploited by human structures. This is the reason for her longevity. She represents a type of power that society frequently seeks to regulate or erase, the force of intuition, the rhythms of nature, and the authority of a woman who is entirely and terrifyingly her own master. She is not a role model in a simplistic sense. She remains far too dangerous for such labels. However, she stands as a profound and lasting symbol of fierce independence, a reminder of a wild, primordial, and potent femininity that defies neat categorization and refuses to be controlled. While so many other figures from ancient lore have drifted into obscurity, Baba Yaga has not only endured but flourished. In the contemporary era, she has been rediscovered by a new generation of creators, emerging from the dense thickets of Slavic fairy tales into the global landscape of popular culture. Yet, her first monumental leap into modern consciousness did not occur within the pages of a book or upon a screen. It all began in a concert hall. In 1874, the illustrious Russian composer Modest Mussorgsky penned a brilliant and revolutionary piano suite titled Pictures at an Exhibition. Each movement of the work served as a musical translation of a different piece of art by his late friend, the artist Victor Hartmann. One of Hartmann's designs featured a bizarre clock crafted in the likeness of Baba Yaga's hut on chicken legs. Drawing inspiration from this peculiar folkloric imagery, Mussorgsky composed a fierce and terrifying piece of music. The movement, titled The Hut on Fowl's Legs, Baba Yaga, is by no means a gentle portrait. Instead, it is a wild, dissonant, and percussive musical assault that encapsulates the terror and raw potency of the witch's flight through the wilderness. The music thumps and shrieks, forging an indelible sonic representation of her character. Mussorgsky's composition immortalized Baba Yaga not merely as a character in children's lore, but as a subject worthy of high art. She had seized the imagination of the great Russian nationalist composers who were mining their native folklore for inspiration. The composer Anatoly Lyadov would later write his own sinister and atmospheric tone poem about her, further solidifying her status within the classical canon. Thanks to these composers, the name Baba Yaga became recognized by educated audiences across Europe. She was no longer just a figure whispered about in rural villages. She was a certified monster of European high culture, a potent archetype whose reputation was poised to leap into the dominant media of the 20th century: film, television, and video games. Baba Yaga has certainly made her mark on the cinematic world. Her name has become cultural shorthand for a fearsome, powerful, and enigmatic older woman who operates by her own ancient set of rules. Her most prominent modern reference appears in the John Wick films, where the titular assassin is so dreaded by the criminal underworld that they dub him Baba Yaga, the one dispatched to kill the boogeyman. Yet, this is a fascinating instance of folklore getting lost in translation. In Russian, the term for a generic boogeyman is babai. More importantly, Baba Yaga is and has always been exclusively female. The film's mistranslation and gender swapping are revealing. They demonstrate that her name alone, even when severed from its original context, has become a pure symbol of terrifying, unstoppable force. Her 20th century legacy also took a peculiar political turn within the Soviet Union. After initially suppressing folklore as backward, the Soviet state in the 1930s began to revive these national tales as a tool for molding cultural identity. In the hands of state-sponsored animators, the ancient, terrifying goddess was tamed and repurposed. In numerous cartoons produced by the renowned Soyuz Multfilm studio, Baba Yaga was frequently depicted as a bumbling antagonist, a chaotic and individualistic force attempting to sabotage wholesome state projects, only to be easily thwarted by disciplined and collectivist young pioneers. The primordial force of the wilderness was diminished to a minor antagonist, a toothless emblem of an archaic, chaotic era that the newly structured Soviet man had to sweep aside. Today, her impact is perhaps most palpable in the realm of video games, where her iconic hut and enigmatic essence provide the perfect foundation for compelling quests and formidable foes. In the Tomb Raider series, the legend is reimagined in a striking manner. Baba Yaga is a mysterious presence haunting a forgotten Soviet outpost in Siberia, and her ambulatory hut is re-envisioned as a bizarre, mechanized walking refinery. This serves as a quintessential example of her adaptability. Even when her narrative is stripped of its traditional mysticism and transplanted into a modern technological landscape, the core components endure: a mysterious and potent woman, a haunted valley, and a terrifying mobile house. This proves the archetype is resilient enough to survive any translation. From an ancient goddess to a fairy tale witch, from a tool of state propaganda to a video game boss, Baba Yaga has proven to be as enduring and unkillable as the myths themselves. Thus, we return to our initial inquiry. Who or what is Baba Yaga? Is she a monster, a vestige of a forgotten deity, a sentry to the spirit world, or a profound psychological archetype embodying our darkest anxieties? The answer, perhaps, is that she is all of these things while simultaneously defying complete categorization. Her true nature and the wellspring of her lasting influence lie in her refusal to be a single, simplified entity. She is a living paradox. She is the visage of death, yet the trail to her hut is the path to rebirth. She is the monster who threatens to devour the hero, yet she is also the source of the magical gift that secures their triumph. She is both the obstacle and the resolution. Baba Yaga's narrative is not merely a fairy tale, it is an invitation. It is a challenge whispered from the forest's edge across the centuries. It dares us to be courageous enough to deviate from the safe path, to approach the strange dwelling standing at the perimeter of our understanding, and to knock on the door to see who or what answers. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the deep woods of Slavic folklore and for listening to the story of Baba Yaga.